Kelly, do you want to take roll call?
I'm sure there's somebody better to do it right now.
So I have a message from Randy saying that he's not going to make it tonight. And Linda has
Meg's on the phone.
on the phone. I don't know if that counts as being present or if we care.
They wouldn't give me one.
You need to go through what just happened, so everybody knows.
You want to do that for roll call?
I'm sure. I was like,
Sorry.
have what I need.
Give you time to catch up.
Ooh, all right, thanks. Phil.
Bill? Present roll call.
Yeah.
He's here.
Lori Draper. Here. Meg Testamarta.
She's on the phone.
Okay. Rissy Casgrande. Here. Kelly Hatfield over here. Linda Paquette.
Yeah.
Randall Stopper.
He's excused.
Okay. Gavin Dunham.
Here.
And Jim McCracken.
I'm here.
All right.
And we have a quorum. So, starting off with the agenda, we don't have an agenda. And I watched the last meeting and I wasn't sure for, and it sounded like every meeting we were going to decide on the next meeting's agenda. Is that what I gathered? I don't remember deciding.
I don't remember deciding the agenda at all, or
Okay.
discussing it.
I was trying to, because I wasn't here to ask questions for clarification, so that was the best that I could gather. So a normal agenda has, presentations, and then the next line is new business, unfinished business, and then discussion items. So that would be the form that we would have right now. So I guess if everyone is in agreement, we can just make an agenda to get started for the day. We have Rob here. He could do a presentation if we want, or we also have all the notes from your last meeting that had a whole bunch of questions for Rob. So if we just want to call that unfinished business and just have Rob answer all of our questions today as new business, I'm open to any suggestions.
And Rissy, one thing that I did that may be helpful is I put together the responsibilities for each of the positions in the proposed org chart. And I think that just may be helpful for the group. So I'll just pass them around. I've already put 3 holes in it so you can put it in your notebook.
Does anybody have any input or ideas about an agenda?
One thing that the group agreed on was to change the mission statement and some of the deliverables.
So would you like to make that a discussion item?
No, I'd just like to state that at the council meeting, they adamantly
Segment.
said no, and they changed it back, so. That's something we probably ought to discuss, and just how do you want to carry on?
Right.
And my thought on this is, we have our list of deliverables. And my thought is just that, start with the first deliverable, work our way through that, go to the next deliverable. If we get through one I don't think we're going to get through a deliverable in one sitting, but, and just take it that way. That's the agenda, basically, is to produce this stuff and trying to do it in as organized a way as possible. That's my input.
Yeah.
For today, since we're not incredibly organized as far as agendas go, and because I'm assuming Rob's not going to be here every meeting.
No, I'll be on.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was
They
like,
agree
I
with
was
that.
Oh, great. I didn't want to waste his time, and I thought maybe we should get all the questions out of the way. I think the questions will also lead us to public, like, help us figure out how to do the rest of it too.
Okay, so if I may, I would just like to propose an agenda of unfinished business for Rob to answer all the questions from the last meeting that we submitted to council. And I think I hear for discussion items to discuss council's direction in not changing deliverables or mission statement. So we can all get on the same page of how we want to proceed with delivering to them what they're asking for.
Yeah, and then I would like to just review the timeline up till now so that everybody understands the late delivery of the document.
Just the timeline.
Document distribution.
And that was distributed today, right?
Yes.
I'd like to add an item at the beginning for, I know everybody introduced themselves at the last meeting, but the recordings weren't recording. So if you guys don't mind, just for the public, so that
Good idea.
there were some council members at the last meeting that thought that maybe we didn't have any qualified people here. So I'd like to make sure that
Let's clear
if for any council members that are listening, that they can know who their contact committee is. And so I'd like to add introductions. I'd like to add at the end of our meeting, at the very end, a discussion item to discuss what our next agenda will be, so that we can maybe come in the next time with an agenda. And that's it for me. Is everyone in agreement with that? We don't have it in writing, but we make a motion to approve the agenda. If anybody can go
I
ahead.
I'm taking notes. Can I repeat what I have for the
Yes,
agenda for today and then make sure we're all on the same page? Essentially, our whole agenda is unfinished business. First and foremost, reintroductions, because the recordings weren't functioning last meeting. Have Rob answer questions that we submitted to council, plus anything else that has come up in the meantime. Discuss council's direction and discuss the timeline for delivery of documents. And discuss the agenda for next time.
Yeah. Any discussion? Anyone want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Voting to approve the agenda? You want to do that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. I don't have the list of all the names, do you? Phil Caluza,
Yes.
Lori Draper,
Yes.
Meg Testamara, is she voting?
I don't know. I don't know that you can vote on the phone. I think you can listen. That was, but we've changed clerk, so I don't know.
And Christie?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Megs.
It's going to be close.
Kelly Hatfield, I vote yes. Linda Burkett,
Yes.
Randall's gone, Kevin Nettle,
Yes.
Jim Kraken.
Yep.
The agenda has been approved, and moving on to unfinished business items, we'll go ahead and start with introductions.
Kevin Dunham, live on Primrose, born and raised here, graduated high school here, 43 years in the high voltage power system and stuff. Just here to help out any way I can.
Kelly Hatfield, 3 years on planning and zoning and seward, and interested in getting involved in this.
I'm Lori Draper. I've been in Seward 46 years, 34 years in banking with National Bank of Alaska and then Wells Fargo. Interested in the issue. So this is my time.
Next, why don't you do an introduction?
Okay, I just have to get up mute. Next testimony, I came to Seward in '83. I was initially a tech on the Alpha Helix, Marine Tech, worked in science teaching, education, lived in Nome for about 20 years. Back here a while back. I had about 10 years ago did my final degree in renewable energy engineering, and I retired from DOT. I don't know, about 7 years ago, working as an engineer. And I'm very interested, I have some background in, education and power and electricity. Just try to help out the best I can in this project.
Thank you. I'll do me. Okay. I guess we're going around the room. Linda McKenna, I've been in Seward for almost 30 years. I'm outside the city, so I have 5 meters, and I'm involved in PACAB, and I just felt like I wanted to help however I could to get the answers on these deliverables for the city.
My name is Phil Kaluza. I'm kind of a newbie here, probably only 15 years in Seward, but I did a stint up at Nome, and during that time I spent 6 years on as elected Nome Joint Utility Board member, and then following that another 6 years on the Nome City Council. So I kind of have that side of the picture that I hope I can offer some help in.
Jim McGrath. Been here about a week. I'm here for the ratepayers. I've been on numerous service area, community councils, fish and game committees, et cetera, over the last year. We did survive our 50th high school reunion a few years back here, so you can do the math on how many weeks that was. We're here to, this is the electrical affects the entire community, each and every one of us. And it's a common denominator that cannot be overlooked. This community pays extreme utility bills, not only electric, but other operating budgets, and it's painful for a lot of people. I'm here for the ratepayer.
Christine Casagranda, I've been here, I think, kind of my whole life. Grew up in Palmer and stayed here in the summers. I served for some years on city council, and I have a great interest in how electricity works. I grew up as the daughter of, my dad ran the Fort Richardson power plant. So as a little girl, I would always go to work with him and watch the turbines and learn about electricity. I've always been very passionate about electricity. And I felt like this was another really great opportunity to learn more and have a lot of pride in the fact that we own our own electricity, much like Dad had pride in the fact that Fort Richardson had their own utility. Go ahead and move on to the next agenda item of Rob answering the questions to Linda's write-up that she sent to council, and I was wondering, I cannot seem to find that. I am sorry, I filed it away electronically until this. Can you forward
Is that
it?
So that's the answers.
Is that the one with the rate?
That's what you,
Sweet. Can I use this?
Where
Can
did
I
that
share
come
it with
from?
you?
you can share.
Okay, sweet, okay.
Written answers to all the questions.
Where? In this
It's
packet?
in all the documents. That
Yeah.
I don't think,
Oh, it is.
I don't know
Yeah, I
if
did
Chris got it
answers,
into
Okay.
this one or not, but it was.
So Rob, you just want to answer them for the public?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to have discussion, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, do you want to ask me the question?
There's packets right here for the public, if you guys want to grab one on this desk right here. He said he took it out of that packet.
It should have been in the packet.
I don't think,
It was part of the
I don't
packet I
think it made it to this packet, because I looked for it.
Oh.
And it was in the original with all the separate documents, and
That
it
was
was
one of the
called,
documents that Chris sent.
and it's
first.
called ad hoc committee questions. That's the name of the Word document. It was sent to me, but it was the first one from Chris.
Well, yeah.
Separate that.
I have an
It
electronic.
came in a Christmas card.
I can read from this. I'm just wondering, do you guys want the copy? Do you guys want me to forward you the copy?
I have it. Just can I add this on my phone?
If you don't follow up on that, I can go back and forth. Okay, so the first question that was submitted to council for Rob to answer is, what is the current average cost per kilowatt?
Yeah, so right now we're in the summer season, we have seasonal rates. So we're a little over 12 cents on our base rate. For the month of July, the COPA, which is the pass-through that we get from 2 Gas Electric, was a little over 11 cents. So our total per kilowatt for the summer months is a little over 23 cents per kilowatt hour.
And I assume that question in the last meeting, and I'm sorry, I watched the last meeting a while ago, and you guys had the last meeting even longer. Is there any discussion or anybody that has a follow-up with
I
that?
mean, is that average across all the different categories or
That's your primary, your residential.
residential?
Yeah. And if you go to the tariff, I believe I provided the tariff as well, you'll see that there's different rates for different customer classes.
And then what is the rate in the off-season or winter?
It's about 8.5 cents on the base rate.
Those are all
As
on
opposed
page
to
3
23 cents?
of this.
There's some, yeah.
They're on page 3, so
I didn't
it's in
see
the
the
very
packet.
beginning of this packet.
Thank you.
I don't know where they ended up in the packet.
Yeah, they're in the very first.
The very first page.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I guess, Rob, I would love to see what the overall cost is. You know, if we took total sales divided by, total revenues or something, when we saw it up class. I don't know how fancy we need to get, but it'd be nice just to know that on average, we're paying 21 cents a kilowatt or something.
And we can get that, we're right in the middle of a rate study.
Right, so that would.
And that would answer the question. We should have results on the rate study preliminary in about, say, within 2 weeks. All right.
Any other discussion, questions?
I do want to mention that in this packet, I got through about a third of it today on my computer at home, and you have given us pretty much everything we've asked for in this packet, I'm pretty sure. There's a really good year-by-year total costs. All we need to do is have some time to actually go through it, and the numbers are all here. And you won't have to try to remember off the top of your head.
Yeah, I think Kevin, I was able to get to most of it. I think there was one document I'm still waiting for finance to deliver, but as soon as I get that, I don't recall.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. On page 244 of our massive handout, Appendix E, have you had a chance to look at Appendix E on rates? It has a breakdown between seward, Homer Electric, 2 Gas Electric, north and south. So, Can you take a look at that? Do you have that?
No, do not. But I think if you're looking at the rates as far as residential, if I recall correctly,
245, yes.
245, excuse me.
if you start with the highest, I believe Golden Valley is going to be the highest, around 25 cents per kilowatt hour. I believe Homer Electric is next, around 24 cents per kilowatt hour. I believe Chugach South, if I'm not mistaken, Jim, is around 21, 22 cents.
I don't know, that was my question, it showed 8. I didn't know.
Oh, you're looking at the base rate. I was giving you the overall.
So the base rate here in Seward then would be 22.10.
No, that's the overall rate. Our base rate is 12, a little over 12
It's a
cents in the
customer
summer.
charge.
Customer charge is
22
22.1.
cents in, yeah.
Customer charge for Chugach South is 8.00.
Yeah.
And the same way with HEA is 20.01. That's customer rate. Okay. And then after that comes sales tax, meter reading fee.
Right. Jim, I'll be glad to. I've got access to a document that shows all the rates for the different rail belt utilities. I'd be glad to provide that. It's, I get it from the commission.
Right.
So,
If I may, can you, just for those of us that are still learning, define exactly when you refer to rail belt, are you referring to?
Good question.
Thank you. Can you tell us who you're referring to?
there are currently 5 rail belt utilities. We're included. We're the only municipality. You have Homer Electric, you have Chugach Electric, you have Matanuska Electric in the valley, and you have Golden Valley. So basically the rail belt's following the railroad from the Kenai Peninsula all the way to Fairbanks.
And HEA is not a part of that rail?
No, they are.
Oh, they are.
They just don't have a railroad.
We do.
I do have a question. CEA South and North, can you just clarify that South is the old Chugach territory and North would be the ML&P?
That is correct.
That's correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And ML&P rates are still, or Chugach North is still higher because of, they were higher before they came on
So it's a
board?
good check, yeah. I mean, they're planning to merge their rates so they can get a blended rate at some point.
Mhm.
And that's part of the process they'll be working through their rate hearing that's coming up. I'm not sure when it'll happen, Kevin, but at some point.
And by the way, the CEA South includes the people in Moose Pass and Cooper Landing
Correct.
and Hope. All of them pay substantially less than anybody else on the rail belt.
Any further discussion? Moving on to question number 2. You want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. Is the power factor measured? If so, are we billing for it? If not, why not?
We do measure the power factor as part of our meter reading. We do not bill for it today. I would not be opposed to it. The issue that we have is when I've looked at the numbers, there's some numbers that do not seem accurate. They seem so low that you would question. So what we're looking to do is if we can at some point verify that those numbers are indeed accurate, it's something that we can consider. But with all of the billing issues that we've had over the past 12 to 18 months, there's no way I would take that on today. Until we can get our billing issues that we've had trouble with, this would be a biting off more than we can chew.
I did see in one of these documents that they are required to keep track themselves, the large industrial
Correct.
customers, of their power factor, and that you can go over and do your metering tests to see if they're accurate. And that doesn't happen at this time then?
No. And that's part of the problem. I mean, it comes back to resources. If we had more resources, we could do some of these things. Today, for us to take on that kind of effort would be time consuming, use up a lot of our human resources. We're limited. Again, that's one of the reasons I would like to see, whether the utility were to sell or not, or whether we rebuild. The bottom line is we need more resources. We can't take on these kind of efforts unless we get more resources. And we got to fix the issues we've had with billing. And that's been a big problem we have had. When we took on the interconnected customers and the net metering, we've had issues getting those done, number one, at all. And number two, when we've been doing them, we've been doing them manually. And that's one reason we were looking to outsource the billing, is so that we can get to a point where we can do everything electronically. The company that we chose to outsource, one of the main reasons, not only were they the best by far, but they used the same software that we use. So if we had some issue in the future with the billing and we needed to bring it back in-house, we could easily do that. But they were able to take our software and they are capable of doing the electronic billing with the software that we were unable to get figured out here.
Okay, can we go back just for a minute to the power factor? Are you aware of any times that they have tested for power factor at any of the large commercial?
I'm not.
Because you require it for those customers to be carrying their own power factor if they're lagging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. And again, that's where I'd like to get us to, is where we are going back. Where you want to get is, and you know this, if you are going to charge for power factor, you want the customer to have the most efficient power factor they can, which is usually a 0.9 or 90%, right? Anything above that, you're fine. Some utilities bill for low power factors, which would be below that level. But your ultimate goal is really not to bill for power factor. Your ultimate goal is to help your customer improve their power factor. That's where you want to get.
So if you don't test, you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one follow-up question to the losses. This goes into the losses that they gave us a sheet showing that you're between 8% and 9% losses.
Correct.
Does that include non-metered places like the city shop or street lights?
Subject to check, Kevin. I would have to check.
You would?
Yeah, I don't know that.
So we had heard with the group last week or 2 weeks ago, somebody had brought up that they had heard that there were a lot of unmetered places where buildings had been hooked up that were owned by the city and they're not being charged. So those losses then are being charged to all the customers as losses.
Right.
When they're truly not losses except in billing.
Well, and one note, if you look kind of across the board at what would be an industry average, it's usually around 5 or 6% on your line.
Not 9%. That was kind of shocking to see.
Yeah, it's high, but not, it's not like the low end of a power factor is 1 or 2, right?
And back to the power factor. I mean, I'd be curious to know what we're looking at. I mean,
Me too.
should we be billing out $10,000 a month on power factor costs? Or,
Possibly. And again, I'll say, Bill, when you cannot even get to a point that you are able to do your standard billing well, and it's an issue that I fought for over a year. I've got a couple of my employees here in the audience who can testify. So until I could get the basic billing functions down, this is one of the things I talk about all the time. This is why when you hear me talking about having more resources and having the expertise within the company, that I've been a proponent of selling and merging with a larger utility. Now, can it be done here? Yes, but we need more resources. And when you have those resources, you can take on more. We've had this conversation about heat pumps. I do believe heat pumps are a viable option here in Seward, right?
Right, but the power factor, I mean, if it's a significant deal, I think that's our job as a committee to say, hey, council, we got to get some billing done so we can be charged, because otherwise everybody's paying for that loss.
Again, I don't disagree.
And so, I don't know if you can show, you've got the meter readings, you've got the data that shows what these power factors are.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some of them that are so far down on the scale, you have to question the accuracy, but they very well could be.
Right.
And at that point, again, you can charge, you're gonna make some money, but at the same time, you wanna make sure you're working with your customer.
Oh, absolutely.
To improve it, right? I mean, the last thing you wanna do is, let's say it's one of our schools, that you wanna go in and start charging large numbers for power factors to your school. And I can tell you right now, there's a couple of schools that are way down on that list. I just don't know if they're accurate, right?
Well, I mean, this is what we have, contract with engineers to do if we have to.
It is a question we'd like to have some answer to before we're done with this job.
Sure.
So, if you can,
Before the-
at least a sample from SMIC, one of the schools, Swordfish. What's it called?
Well,
Swordfish, what is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me say this, when I came into this job, I've been in 2.5 years, right? When I stepped in, we had a number of issues. And Rissy, you were on council, you've heard me say many times, you do not compromise on safety and you do not compromise on reliability. And when I came in, the right-of-ways, transmission right-of-ways, especially near Moose Pass, were the worst I've ever seen. We had trees growing up into the power lines. We had arcing and flashing on a regular basis. We're lucky that we did not start a forest fire. So that had to be priority one. Plus, we were having a number of power outages. All right. 2, you look at what we had on Nash Road. How it got to that point, I have no idea. But you should never have your transmission, and for those in the audience that don't know, transmission is your high voltage, right? You should never have transmission poles that are being held up by the tension of the power lines. So when you come into a job like this, my first goal was to prioritize what we needed to get done, make sure it gets done, and make sure that we're also doing what we have to from a safety standpoint. The other stuff, for me coming in, was noise. We had to take care of these problems first, and that's what we've done. We have cut the power outage down 75% over the past 2 years. I would think that most of you have noticed that. And if you drive out Nash Road today, you'll see that we got brand new power poles on Nash Road. On the back half, we'll come back in the spring and do the front part of Nash. And we just finished the upgrade going into the Fort Raymond power plant, the last half-mile section. So in two and a half years, when you look at the things that have gotten done in the utility, we've actually kicked butt, all right? I've got good folks that are sitting back here. I've got a good crew. From an operations standpoint, we have a decent staff. We're staffed about right. It's the other side of the utility where we need help. So, yes, billing. The other thing I got hit with coming in the door was we need to be interconnected. So we worked hard to try to get an interconnected program up and running. What we didn't do well is the billing part of that. And that billing part has been a huge issue for me and for the billing department in the city. And it's something that I've been fighting hard for the past year to get straightened out. We lost our one person at the utility desk that had been doing it for a number of years who moved over to the fire department. So again, when you start looking at the issues that we have dealt with and the things that we've gotten done, the power supply contract with 2 Gas Electric is supposed to have been renegotiated in 2016. Wasn't done. So when I come in the door, it's another thing that I needed to take on immediately. Also, when I walked in the door, we had the rate study already underway in the very early stages. So I had to take the rate study on as well.
Okay.
But I'll wrap up.
Linda, go ahead.
As we're going through this stuff, we're going to identify things like we've already identified with the power factor. Anything that falls outside the deliverables needs to go on a list, and that can be stuff that we look at after we've finished the deliverables. But I really think we need to give them the deliverables as the top priority. So identifying other things that need fixing is fine, and when we give it back to council, we can include our recommendations about power factors or whatever else. But I really want us to stay focused if we can on reaching the deliverables.
Lori, did you have?
Yeah, mine was on billing, and since you brought it up, it wasn't really part of that question, but you brought it up, and I happen to be one of those customers that has some solar panels, so I know full well how much time you spent with one single consumer on the billing and how much time that has taken. So my question is on the outsourcing, when does that start, or?
Starting now, this month.
Now, okay. And how many full-time equivalents does that free up for you?
Oh, well, it doesn't free up any for me.
None for you.
The billing is in the city's finance department. We have one utility desk person. Typically, you would fill that with 2, but we, for the past, since I've been here 2.5 years, we really haven't had that second position filled. I think we've had somebody in it for like 3 months out of the 2.5 years I've been here.
If I may, I'm pretty sure there's 2 utility managers and then 1 utility billing. So there's 3 positions to answer that question.
But my question was, how many did it free up? And the answer is 0.
No, because they're gone now.
Right?
There's
We
not.
eliminated the one position that was never filled.
Okay.
We still have a utility desk person, so we still have that one, and we have a manager. The manager's not really just overbilling. That person does a number of things.
And just to clarify, since you have a billing question, go ahead.
So the outsourcing people are going to be able to build the solar panels?
Correct.
Oh, well, that's nice, because I'm in the same boat.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that when I was looking to outsource, that was one of my goals.
Right, very nice.
Are
Madam
the,
Chair,
yes, sir.
Can we get back on, I have a question now on the questions?
Yeah. You want to stay on the questions?
Yes, I have a follow-up question on the questions.
Go for it.
On item 2, on power factor, how many customers do we have a power factor question about?
Yeah.
How many
If I recall, it was a check, it was in the neighborhood of 30 to 40.
30 or 40?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do each of them already have the metering that's capable of giving you the power factor?
Our meters, yeah, our meters read power factor. We're
Okay.
just we're not sure if they're reading the MAC.
Okay. And if your meters do it, does the new company actually are they going to record that, the billing company?
Good question,
That's not-
Simon. Don't know.
Or are they only looking at kilowatts?
I think they're only looking at kilowatts. If it's something we ask for, I'm sure they could do it.
Okay, but do you have computer reading of those meters?
No.
No remote? I thought that Seward was going to remote.
We have a remote, so that's your question.
Yes.
Yes, all of those meters that we're using today are remote.
Including the power factor meters.
Correct.
Okay, so you should be able to read them from your office?
No.
Who
No, we
does
have
it?
a handheld. We have to have a meter reader that goes out.
Oh, he has to be close to it.
Have to get into close
They don't
proximity.
record that. All right.
We have a handful of meters that do not read each month because of interference around them. And we're in the process, I just found out that our handhelds really haven't been serviced or updated in about 2 years, so we're working to get those back.
Okay.
But that information's going somewhere.
Right.
That data is getting dumped into,
We have it on our building information, and I assume, we haven't asked them to keep track of the power factor, but we read it every month. So it's part of what we're registering.
But it's
We
in
read
the
it
tariff, so they should know that they're supposed to keep track of it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Any further discussion on the
Please.
power factors? Yes, sir.
How long does it take to read 30 meters? Can we do that in one day?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Does Chugach Electric charge us for power factor?
Now, if I recall correctly, they do not charge for power factor at all.
Okay. And so if they don't charge for power factor, why would we?
we don't exceed that 90% or something.
Even so, I don't think they charge for power factor. If I recall correctly, Phil, I asked Arthur Miller, the
It comes
CEO.
down to the losses. They deliver a certain megawatt amount
Right.
at
Some
Dave Creek
utilities-
substation.
and some
That's where we
utilities
can
do,
argue.
so
I think
Yeah.
HEA, I thought I saw
So
there.
it's already factored
Yeah,
in.
some utilities do, some don't. Right?
Yeah.
So I would like just clarification on that. If it's already factored in, it's not a separate line item, right?
No,
Kind of like-
we're paying them for any losses we have, because we're paying them the full amount of the power. Any losses that incur on the Seward system, we're eating those losses.
But we're paying them because of our own
Right.
issues.
But
Right.
the full amount of power we buy from them includes all of our losses.
Correct. But they're not doing a line item for power factor on us.
Is it in there though?
No.
They don't need to,
They don't need to.
not on a
Right.
wholesale power contract.
Right.
But each of these customers then can degrade the Seward electrical, the voltage wave, and cause losses. So if a customer across the bay is causing losses, it can affect all of the customers by lowering the voltage for the rest of us.
Okay.
That's the way the power factor works on a distribution system.
And I venture to say, I don't know about the rest of the people in the audience. I'm not even sure most people would know what a power factor is. So we're having a conversation over something that most people would not know the definition of.
Right. But it is a loss to the system. And
Because of any.
it does have a cost.
Typically because it's, large commercial customers or industrial, but it's big equipment, and their equipment is not operating either efficiently, it's old and dated, or they're not running it at full capacity on a regular basis.
And according to Phil in our last meeting, our line losses are about double the national average.
Right, yeah, Kevin brought that up.
Yeah.
So that could be a component of
So
it.
it's,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, so quick question about power factor and something you said about Chugach. Are you saying that Chugach doesn't charge any of their customers
Oh,
power factor?
absolutely. But not the commercial, not Seward is a
Not
wholesale
Seward, right,
customer.
but I'm
any
thinking about from
customers, I
the,
can tell you an example is there's a big wood shop, and they have lathes and routers and all kinds of big motors that they run. And when they turn those on, their power factor goes down until the motors speed up and stuff. They get hit with a power factor charge, and they make them put in capacitors for when they start the equipment. Another one is Air Liquide, the one that produces the gases to be used for welding and all that stuff. They also have had power factor problems where they had to put equipment in to boost the power factor.
so does Homer charge power factors?
Subject to check, Linda.
Okay.
I spoke to one, and one of them said they do not charge. I thought it was 2 guys. Okay, they may have been on.
Okay, I'm asking simply for the whole
Right.
sale discussion, when you're comparing
Sure.
apples and oranges, and we're talking power factors for us. If we were to give it to Chugach, we wouldn't have them. If we give it to HEA, we are gonna have it. I think all
No,
of that
no,
needs to
that
be
has
known.
nothing to do with anything. The power factor is a local issue. They're not gonna charge anybody, but they'll make them fix it.
It's a customer issue. It's an individual customer
Right.
issue.
Right.
So,
Sewer corporations are basically, and like you maybe possibly being inefficient with their electrical machinery and stuff, and that is causing those losses perhaps, which are then being covered by everyone in sewer.
Yeah, essentially what's going on, what Kevin's point, is we're buying electricity from Chugach Electric, and we're delivering 100% of that power to that business. So when it goes in, it's at 100%. But because of inefficiency on their side, they're not using all of that electricity that's going in. And so what's being read on the meter is less than that. And so that's where your power factor comes in, and that's where you're trying to recover those lost revenues. I mean,
it's a little bit complicated, but really simple. There's 2 waves that you're talking about. There's a voltage wave and a current wave. And leading and lagging has to do with, you want the voltage wave to lead the current wave. But in some cases, the way that the equipment works, it reverses and then you have losses. Okay, that's where your power factor is bad. But we don't really want to get into that part of it.
It's a loss. There's
It gets extremely complicated. What we want to see is a couple of test cases, and then maybe we'll just table this because maybe it's not that big of a deal after all. So I think we may be spending too much time on that.
no, I would agree. I think we're in
Yeah.
the weeds on it. I think we'll follow up. We'll be glad to do some testing. But again, this comes back to, your limited resources, running a utility this small.
It's now a line item, so Rob will check into it and we can move on to
Perfect.
other things.
Any other discussion? So we're closing up question number 2, and we have, Rob said that he will come back with some power factor readings on what, is it gonna be a random check into
A
it?
little large one, so.
Couple,
We'll do it, but we'll just.
2 of the largest? And maybe we can
And
get,
we'll pick some that we feel like are, not where they should be.
Interesting to see SMIC when they lift the ship.
Yeah,
Check that
Right.
power factor when they lift the ship.
Right.
That would be very interesting.
Okay, and
To
so,
me.
just for somebody that doesn't fully understand how all this works, can you tell me, is it something that you read over a month of time, or is it like a monthly reading? What does
Power
that look
factor's read each month when we read the meter.
Wow,
So we have
okay.
those numbers, right?
And they record, those meters record, so
Yeah.
it will have a history of the power factor going up and down.
And
Perfect.
then it's an average or something over that month then that,
I don't know how they,
How that works.
I'm not an expert in that part for sure. It's,
Neither am I.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on, just so that we can make sure we get through all 7 questions, because we have a limited time.
Go back to what I said.
Can I make a comment about
Yeah.
the where the loss is? It might be important to figure that out, because if it is with the non-metered buildings of the city of Seward, if we sell the utility, those will be metered, and cost us money.
yeah, if there's unmetered things, what she's saying, if there's unmetered buildings now, if somebody buys us, they're gonna wanna meter those buildings.
And charge the city of Seward.
And so, you know, too, Kevin, that's one of the things we're trying to clean up.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I've been in meeting with these guys back here. We're trying to get this all figured out, right? We're trying to clean up several years of not great record keeping and not necessarily doing things the right way.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. The one thing that I did want to add, I was gonna wait till the end, but I will just say really quick, when I was watching the meeting, somebody said, yes, the streetlights are metered. From my experience of being the meter reader, I did find a couple city buildings, city shop one that has a meter, but it just wasn't in my meter. It wasn't something that was read. I don't know if that was one of the ones that was fixed. And then as I was driving up 4th Avenue, there are lights. I know 3rd Avenue is metered. There's meter boxes all along 3rd Avenue, and I think that's the state. But I do not recall any meters for the lights, although I have seen people's bills where they have a street light on their bill. So I just wanted to add that too. Going on to number 3, what is the story of providing cruise ship power, and is there a future market for us? You guys.
Yeah, all right, from my perspective, it's been a lot of starting and stopping. Really, the city's not leading this charge. This is the railroad. It was in the spring, the railroad was moving quickly to get cruise ship construction underway, even hiring engineering firm. So we held a couple of conference calls with them regarding, getting power to the dock. A couple of months after those calls, those Zoom meetings, basically we're told to stand down. Last we heard on it, it's dead in the water, it's not moving quickly. I personally think at some point there will be cruise ship power, but are we talking, 5 years, 10 years? I do not have the answer to that. I just think it's something that will happen. We're Seward, we're a large cruise ship port, and I think that you'll see the industry move in that direction, the industry being the cruise ship industry. And you may even see some sort of state or federal mandates for cruise ships to take shore power. I think it'll happen one day. I just don't know when. But right now, as far as anything that's on the forefront, it's been put on the back burner.
Any discussion? Anyone in the audience? Kelly?
I'm assuming it's a huge project, but what are we talking to get power to the docks? Like, what does that entail?
No, it's not. It's the work that we're doing right now, upgrading the system, refurbishing our substations. We will be in good shape. We've already got the engineering design for what we would do to get power, but we're not approved to do that through the city. We haven't funded for it. So while we have the engineering for it, we're just kind of sitting on hold until something breaks in the floor.
Will you install a 115 kV switch that may go to it in the future? in the substation?
Possibly, that's one of the conversations we were having with their engineering company. Our original plan was to come out with dual circuits out of Fort Ray and come underground along the Seward Highway to Port, and then cross over Port and down that way. We're working with the railroad, when it's their project, they're a little easier to work with about getting on their easements. So there's an opportunity that we could come out of Fort Ray, cross over the Seward Highway over to the railroad, and follow their easement right down to the dock area. So that's our plan differed from their plan because once they told us, hey, we'll let you on our easement, we're like, well, that's where we need to be. So.
Okay, but the plan is to go ahead and install the bus work and a switch with this job. Okay. So you will be ready to run the line?
Right.
And if I remember correctly, Rob, you had presented the council 3 different upgrading the substation. Was it Dana Creek substation? And then
No, we have 3 that we own. We've got Fort Raymond here at the power plant. We've got the Spring Creek, which is out at the end of Nash Road. And then we've got the Lawing substation, which is at Monaco's 25 at the Seward Highway.
okay, but you had presented to council 2 different big multi-million-dollar jobs,
For the radio.
and we approved one of them, and there was another one that was going to run the lines to the cruise ship.
Correct, which we never.
And how much is that?
If I recall correctly, I want to say that was in the neighborhood of $4 or $5 million.
Okay.
And you canceled that transfer? It was never ordered?
Never ordered.
Yeah.
Any other questions, discussion? Becky?
Yeah, somebody just messaged that it's not on YouTube, it's not on the city YouTube, it's on Sacktown YouTube. It's also on 91.7 right now, and Linda has it on
Seward Civic Engagement.
Seward on Facebook. So I have a question. Can we have an estimate on how much you think the cruise ships would use? Right now, they're just using fuel that they don't even buy from us to run generators. So can we get an estimate on what we would make from that when we were selling, if we were to be selling electric to them? I cannot talk, translate
Yeah,
something.
I had an estimate done on that by an outside firm, and subject to check, because that was a while back, we were looking at gross a little over $2 million for a season, and netting somewhere around 1.2, 1.3 million. And again, subject to check, but those are going to be ballpark. That's close. And we were looking at a 75% load factor for the cruise ships.
What's the typical load of just a ballpark figure?
It ran anywhere from like 7 to 10 megawatts.
So almost as much as the city of Seward, just
On a
to
summer
run
day.
one ship.
Right. You got it. It was about double the load for a typical summer day in Seward.
And what would happen if we had 3 cruise ships in?
Well, you would.
One would be running their generators.
Or if they start bringing the super ones in.
I mean, that's what happened to Seward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how often do we get 3 cruise ships here, right?
So going back to the cruise ship, I'm just curious, I know I was on council when the cruise ship dock was getting some things in order from council as far as rerouting the road and bringing some dirt and some prep things for the cruise ship terminal. And at the time, I was asking why we couldn't, as council, make legislation that requires they hook in. And it was kind of brushed to the side, like, oh, we'll deal with that later. And so I would like to know, with the new council, if that's something that we can require.
Sure, they would prefer to have the legislature say, hey, if city power, shore power is available, you should, otherwise they're gonna go, well, we're all gonna go. Right, they're gonna play their little game. So it seems to me like if we could get the state involved, DEC, to say, hey, no burning diesel while in port if you've got access. That would prevent that getting within.
That goes on the wall.
Well, they wanted, they ready to be cheaper, and they were willing to pay for part of it.
Linda, are you running the camera? Yeah, somebody just texted me and said camera's down.
I think they're talking about the city YouTube. City didn't want it aired, so I aired it on Sacktown, and now it's on
Okay.
91.7.
That may be it.
Yeah, this is around.
Yeah, they're talking about the city YouTube.
Facebook and Sacktown YouTube.
And on 91.7, it has a better sound on the radio, if you have
Okay.
FM
Is there
radio.
any more discussion on the cruise ship? The audience is awfully quiet.
And, my thing, Christy, on the cruise ships is it's really hard to plan for something that you're being told may not happen. I still think it will at some point, but there's just no guarantee.
Becky, did you have something else?
Yeah, actually, it was a text from, our YouTube is frozen. Ours is frozen. Okay. I have a text from Bruce Jaffa, and it wasn't regarding that, though it was going back to employees. Can the city provide the staff excluding linemen for Valdez, Cordova, Anna Clake, Sitka, Ketchikan, Haynes, and Craig? Valdez I can answer. That's one person, my brother, because it is, it's Copper Valley does that. So as far as the city of Seward,
It's in the packet, and then you have several of the other towns in here.
Oh, okay.
What their linemen make, so it is in your packet. Doesn't have all the places I'd like to see. Cordova, I'd like to see, but each of the positions isn't the same in what places
And
they
Lydia's back on.
compare.
Right, and you run into that problem, you're not sometimes mixing apples and apples together when you look at positions. One utility, their union position may be slightly different than another, but they're very similar, right? So you're dealing with that situation. Let me also just add on to what's being said. The, Seward is a little different than some of those cities and towns, villages, communities that have been mentioned, in that we are connected to the larger grid. We are constantly in communication and working closely with, you heard me mention the rail belt utilities earlier. So we sit at the same table with them on many committees, many boards. I'm on the Bradley Lake Project Management Committee with the CEOs of the other utilities. There are a number of rail belt committees that we serve on. And right now, we basically have one person in our utility who's trying to represent Seward in all of those different committees and boards. And Kevin's familiar with some of the committees and boards because he actually served on one point for Seward. And then when you start adding the RRC and what's going to be the new electric reliability organization, that's going to require a Seward board member as well. So when you start looking at the amount of time that we have, and I say I have, or a person has, it's limited.
I did have a comment last week or 2 weeks ago about you putting that on there. That is customarily, it's always been the manager, which would be your position.
Right.
And then if you had these other two sub-managers, they could share part of that. And then, like Golden Valley does, they always had a board member. That was actually so council could have a member, but that job seems to me like, do you have a real reason why that couldn't be shared amongst your 3 employees here and a council member? Or
when you look at the proposed board, that's the plan.
Like you'd asked me, or with my dad before me, to be a volunteer from the community to help.
Some of the positions, Kevin, are you really need somebody from within the utility, like myself, like you mentioned. But when you look, all right, let's take the Bradley Lake Project Management Committee. All right, I'm the person that serves on that for Seward. I do not have an alternate. All the other utilities have an alternate position. Why? Because we really don't have someone that's, that has the background to say, play at that table. And Phil, I know you've attended, I've seen you there. So, but there are different committees. The operations position that I have, there are 2 committees on the rail belt that position is perfect for. Right now, I'm serving because we don't have an operations person in that role. So we would be dividing that up. If we go to the proposed org chart, that's one of the purposes of the business operations manager, is we could divide and conquer some of these things at a state and rail belt level, and that person could also manage the day-to-day functions of customer relations, communications, and whatever compliance we have to do related to the RRC. I live that life over there. I work at least 5 days a week. I see what's needed. I didn't come up with the proposed org chart because I was just bored.
Rob, have you asked somebody to be alternate?
I asked Stephen, but as Stephen said to me, Stephen Soul.
Does he have any background?
No. And
I
that's
mean, I think you have a dais here of people. I know a while back when Kevin was appointed, I applied for that position as well. I think there's a lot of people that you would find.
Richie, I don't disagree.
Okay.
But with the Rowley Lake Project Management Committee, there's not an alternate on that team that doesn't work for the utility. Okay? This is a different organization than what you're thinking about.
Okay.
All right?
Skip?
Have to chastise Mr. Jaffer for Shanghai the meeting. We were not
Sure.
changing the agenda. We were still on the
Yep.
cruise ship, and I had
Thank
a
you.
question as a follow-up. Sorry to bring us back
No,
to
it's okay.
center.
Go for
That was the
it.
topic on the table. Can we, for the record and for the public's information on this cruise ship thing, because a lot of people work for the cruise ship industry and in the tourism industry, just delve into this just a little deeper, peel it back. Number one, how many communities in the state require or have shore power for cruise ship hookup? Is number one. This is for the audience. Number two.
Is that for the audience or for us?
Well, for you,
Answers?
but I mean, it's for you to get answers. I mean, I think we should finish the conversation so we know, because I don't think the public's going to understand where this matter sits, other than the fact that, as Mr. Kaluza pointed out, unless it's state mandated, if this town decides to mandate electric power to cruise ships, I could tell you there's a town just north of us here called Whittier that'd be glad to take a few more ships off our hands. That's not what we need. That's not the turf war we need with other communities. So how many towns require it? How many towns have it? And what's the cost of a blueprint to electrify one dock only? We have 2 docks. If we want to electric power a dock, what does that investment cost? And that investment,
We have 2 cruise ship docks?
well, you have 2 docks, but for every berth, you have to electrify a berth. Is that correct, Mr. Rob?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's 2 berths, about $12 million a berth. So just,
Ballpark. If you look at Gina,
Yeah.
ballpark.
Can you expand, I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody else is lost.
so you have a cruise ship dock, but every berth requires a hookup. And maybe Mr. Rob can fill us in on this, but
You can't just have one hookup?
oh, you could have one.
So
If
the
you-
first
but-
person in has to hook up, but the next person can be on a generator?
Well, I don't know why you would do that, because if you're,
I'm just
if
saying
you're
if you
gonna.
can't afford it, but go
Oh,
ahead.
I thought we were talking about our community. Somebody mentioned requiring that we do this, and I'm saying, if you throw down on that, what is that gonna cost you? And that's gonna cost you dearly. And,
Would it cost us, or would it be a requirement that you would say to the railroad?
If you made the requirement for them to hook
They
up,
would
then
leave.
Seward would probably have to pay for the infrastructure. Yeah.
But having said that, I think Seward would work hard, as with the railroad, to try to create a partnership with the cruise ship partner or partners to help offset some of those costs. I think you've seen that in other places.
So going back to the $5 million that you quoted, that's just to run the transmission line
And a transformer. Right.
and the transformer, and then you're saying $12 million for each berth?
Yeah.
It was 12 million for Juno. Again, subject to check. When we looked at it, I wasn't looking at the overall project. I was looking at what it would take for us to get electricity to the dock.
So your 12 million that you mentioned would be including, you would subtract the 5 million that you put into it.
Correct.
Yeah, so it'd be about 7 million more then
Yes.
to put the distribution equipment in for the cruise ships to hook up to.
Times 2 or?
Well, probably not. I can't see it being that much. No, I'd say the 5 to 6 million to get it ready on the high voltage side, and then another 7 million maybe for the distribution side for them to have the equipment. Because those are pretty big
Again,
plugs.
I'm giving
It's not a simple thing to hook up something that has several megawatts of load going through it.
And Richie, my number's coming from a conversation with the general manager of the Juno utility, as well as news articles, and the range that they were in was around 12 million for the overall project.
Okay. And I thought
That
I
sounds way
remembered
better.
12.
Yeah.
I thought I
Retrofit
remembered
versus
12 million.
the new,
No,
Honestly, no?
no.
That was 5? Okay.
Yeah, no. Less than 5. It's less than 5 now. It's
Okay.
like 4 point something.
Okay. Any other
Madam
discussion?
Chair,
Yeah.
I know we need to get in gear here. I have one follow-up question on
Sure.
this. These are international corporations that are mega. Why are we paying for it? 2, the Alaska Railroad owns the dock. They're providing the service. They should write the check. We're just a small community trying to survive. We're rolling up dimes, is what we're hearing, to stay alive. And these people want us to throw $20 million in the air so they can save some diesel fuel. I go, that's enough. They put it in if they want it, they put it in. We're selling the electricity, but they put it in. I mean, come on.
Okay.
And I think that was part of the pickup, Jim, is that as the railroad was pursuing this, in working with cruise ship partners, whoever they may have been, I think the numbers, they were just having a hard time agreeing on what those numbers look like.
cruise ships prefer to have somebody else pay for it.
Right, absolutely.
No, we paid enough for them already.
Any further discussion on the cruise ships? Okay, moving on to number 4, what percentage of customers are inside versus outside city limits?
Can we go back just for a second to the rail belt liaison? Because
Yeah.
that goes directly to deliverable number 1.
Okay,
And don't you think that we could take that off for a while then, at least? Because I'm not aware of any other of the companies that actually had a person with that title on any of the companies. Now, you attend all the managers' meetings since Senate Bill 123 that mandates the new reliability corporation. Does that actually say anywhere, or have any of the other companies made an employee a rail belt liaison?
They are considering it.
Okay. So they have so much more resource available.
Yeah, I mean, what we have found, Kevin, is that the work requirements of what's going on with the rail belt in the state of Alaska, and where we're trying to get with chasing down grants for transmission across the rail belt, different projects that we're looking at, the other utilities are considering a full-time position dedicated to this. Now, regardless of what they did, again, I'm living this every day. In this position, what you have on your proposed org chart, I've changed the name of it, it's government relations. In the document I passed out earlier, if you look at it, it's government relations and rail belt. And so there would be more responsibilities than just the rail belt for this person. This person would also be tracking state and federal legislation, writing reports and white papers on the legislation, what it could mean for the city of Seward, what it could mean for the state of Alaska. So again, it's not like I'm making up positions. There are certain functions I could roll up underneath this person as well. And so I do see it being an expanded government relations position.
Okay. But for the price, it's going to be well over $100,000 for an employee.
Not necessarily for that position.
Okay.
That position is going to be in the ballpark. In my guesstimation, this is what you guys are supposed to be looking at. I don't know if I should even give it to you, let you guys figure it out. But, you know, I'm thinking that position's right at 100, 90 to 115 range.
So is it still gonna be 40 hours a week,
Yes.
2,080 hours a year approximately? Okay. So it's a
Linda?
full-time position.
Go ahead.
Is it possible that there's another community that we could share that position with? Does that make any sense at all? Like a Homer or another?
They have them. I mean, you know, they have enough resources where they can divide and conquer. We don't.
So some of these smaller communities like Cordova or,
Not on the rail bill.
and then they're not on the railroad, so there's
It's
that.
only the 5 companies.
Yeah, and
I'm just looking at a way to
Right, right,
share,
right.
I mean, we're an awfully
Right.
small place.
Phil, if you give me 1 minute. If you look at the existing org chart, you'll see we're heavy on the operations side. You look over on the business side, we're not so heavy, right? But that's where we start running into the issues. In my perfect world, you know, I would have more flexibility to utilize some of the people that I have within the organization. But because of the constraints created by the union contracts, if I ask, say, one of our union employees to take on another task, that's out there, outside of their job description, and they have to be compensated more money to do it. So I have to manage that very carefully. So it's not like I can just task one of our existing employees as part of the union with something else.
I guess, you know, when I think about Seward and the rest of the rail belt, we don't do generation, you know, into the rail belt. We're not part of the power pool group where all the battles go on and all the tussles. We're a customer.
But we're tied by.
But we got lucky, they got grandfathered in to be at the table.
That's not exactly true, because we do own 1.2% of
Right.
Bradley Lake, so we are part of the Bradley Lake
Right,
project.
but we are not part of
But Phil,
the
but-
MEA and.
And when Chugach is tight, there have been times in the past, it was actually in the contract that they could cut Seward off 10 times a year.
Because they gave us a little better rate for intermittent.
But
That was a help at times, especially on hot summer days, gas turbines produce way less power. The colder it is, the more they produce, but on hot summer days, we would cut Seward off.
absolutely, and they have that right. You know,
10 megawatts is still 10 megawatts when you need it, you know?
one point I want to make is that, you know, I get tired of hearing, we're not them, we're not them, I get it, right? We're a municipality, they're co-ops. They're much larger than we are. We don't have generation. However,
Yes,
we
we
are
do.
tied to a lot of, well, we've got
Yes, we do.
backup generation. Right. Understand where I'm going though. We are tied by contract through Bradley Lake, through the RRC, to play at the table. We have to provide resources to be a part of those conversations and protect the interest of Seward. Even you said it after a meeting in Anchorage, I ran into you, and you said, man, I sure like having Seward sitting at the table.
Absolutely.
All right? So while we can sit there and go, well, Seward really shouldn't have to do that, we have to, whether we like it or not.
We need a warm body there representing Seward.
So
I
going
agree.
back to this deliverable, because I want to keep us all on track, and I thank you for bringing us around, because that's our mission, right, is to deliver the deliverables to council. Again, I applied to be on that committee. It sounded like it wasn't that big of a commitment. You've been on the committee, right? You've
I was
served.
on it until they actually dissolved it after Homer Electric and Matanuska Electric
Pull it out.
pulled out.
That was Arctec, and that one was kind of
Yes.
on the fringe for a while.
So that was something separate.
Correct.
So what we're talking about is the rail belt.
Now, again, you're talking about two different things.
Okay,
We've got the Bradley Lake Project Management Committee,
okay.
and then we have the Rail Belt Reliability Council. The Rail Belt Reliability Council is the one that Dave Burlingame has been volunteering on behalf of Seward. There were some weeks where he was putting in probably 12 hours to 15 hours a week representing Seward and not being compensated for it as a volunteer. Without him doing that, I don't know what we would have done. And the man knows the industry probably as well as anyone in the state of Alaska.
Who's this?
Dave Burlingame.
He's owner of EPC, EPS, Electric Power Systems.
Yes.
So he's
Electrical contractor in the state.
Okay.
He was also the manager
I know who
of
he is.
dispatch at Chugach Electric for several
he is
years,
still-
and head of engineering at Chugach for several years.
Brilliant, he's a great man. He's still serving in this volunteer capacity for us. He's been doing it until the ERO gets staffed. They're in the process of
What's the ERO?
Electric Reliability Organization. They're going to oversee, RISI, all of the, or supposedly, we'll see how it plays out, all of the transmission planning and integrated plans. They're the ones responsible for setting up the reliability standards on transmission for the state, as well as the cybersecurity standards. They've had various subcommittees working at the same time as the larger group on those different facets, and they're very close to getting their organization staffed with and CEO interviews are going on right now.
So one more little follow-up. Is there any problem with doing just like you did before with it? Started back in 1991 with the Joint Action Agency was the first one to try to get all the power companies to work together.
Sure.
There have been volunteers throughout that whole thing. Can
No,
you still
I
have volunteers to help fill that position?
And I hope we get a volunteer, right? That's where I'm leaning for that position as we go forward. But there's a couple of different positions related to the RRC that we'll have to man. And I, whoever's in my role will have to at least be the alternate, the backup.
No, they should be the primary.
Well,
And the volunteer usually is the alternate. Or I
Yeah,
attended every meeting. Every once in a while, John Fouts couldn't make
Kevin,
a
in a
meeting.
perfect world, right?
Yeah.
In a perfect world.
Right.
But if you're trying to manage Seward as well, I mean, it's hard to do both. And I'll just I'm being frank, right?
And I don't want to beat it to death, but I still
Right.
think that
Okay.
we could save $100,000.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that we may help council understand is, maybe hold the community for volunteers for that $100,000 position.
But you're talking about two different type of things, Kevin. You're talking about a volunteer to serve on a board versus somebody who's boots on the ground doing work day to day. This is not a volunteer to sit on a board. This is somebody who's actually tracking legislation, attending meetings on behalf of Seward that are related to the rail belt, the state, even federal government legislation.
Okay, and we're just gonna move on, just so that we can get down, because we're getting short on time, and if we wanna make this another discussion item, I think this is something that we could really hone in on, but just for the purpose of the meeting, we'll keep on going. Okay, so, number 4, what percentage of customers are inside versus outside city limits?
52% inside, 48% outside.
That's for the kilowatts, but what about meters?
That is your percentage, that's your meters. Yeah.
That was surprising because I think the group thought that there were more outside than there were inside.
It's
And
close.
spread out,
Very close.
yeah.
So,
It is almost 50/50.
Madam Chair, if I
Yeah.
might, what about the kilowatts? Split, is this equal split, 52-48?
My guess is no, because of the businesses here in JAG and others, but again, subject to check.
60-40?
So,
75-25.
I mean, I can throw out any number, but it may be.
I saw that.
I can try.
I saw that somewhere in all those spreadsheets.
Yeah, I mean, it's there, it's just,
Right.
And that was just does anybody have any follow-up or discussion on that? No? So we'll move on to number 5. What is the bulk power price? Roughly.
what we're paying is a little over 11 cents to Chugach on our bulk power. And Chugach has gone in or getting ready to go in for asking the commission for a rate increase. For the city of Seward, the rate increase, we're a wholesale customer, the only one they have. The increase would be about 6.5%, which is going to come to a little over $400,000 annually to the city of Seward. For the end-use consumer, the increase is going to be around 3.5%, and it's going to end up being around $5 a month more for a residential customer using 600 kilowatt hours.
Any discussion?
So it raises the 11 cents to,
I'd have to do the math.
Times 0.065.
And that is the bulk power price is in this packet too.
Right.
You did good getting all that stuff together.
0.11, that's 0.11715 is what it raises it to.
Well, it would be 23 plus 3.5%, because 23 is going to be big.
Well, that's
No, I
the
was
whole-
going for the COPA.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, moving on to number 6. What is the length of the contract with Chugach Electric?
The length is 3 years. It expires in 25. To terminate the contract, you'd have to give a year's notice, so that means you would have to give notice by December 31st of this year, 2023. So that, yes, because it's January of 25, so you need a year's notice.
And
So if you get notice in December of this year, then it would terminate in December of 24, because the contract starts and terminates January 1st. Okay.
any discussion?
No, just that we've looked several times at putting out to bid for the other companies to bid, and nobody can compete with Chugach because they have to go through Chugach's
Well,
lines. They have to pay Wheeling, and they have to pay the state through the state-owned lines.
Well, the last time that we did it, we put it out. I actually met with Chugach, with Homer, and with Mataniska to see what they could offer, and Chugach had the lower rate.
And I helped previously, the 6 years or 5 years ago with John Fouts, and same thing, we put it out and it was like nobody could compete, so
Right.
it was.
2018, there was a lot of conversation back and forth between Chugach and the city. Does anybody have a copy of that, or should we get a copy of that?
Back and forth on what?
On the sale of the utility to Chugach?
We're talking about the power supply.
Yeah, we're just talking about.
Oh, okay, I thought we were talking about the
Wholesale power
sale.
contract,
Yeah,
which is 3-year term, right?
correct.
so just for the people watching, to clarify, if the sale to Homer actually goes through this fall, we really don't end up with HEA until January 1 of 2025, because we're under contract with Chugach, or if
You
we
would give
break it
notice.
by December.
And you would give notice to Chugach. You would still have to work through regulatory approval.
But if we gave them notice by December 31st of this year,
Correct.
we'd be able to get out of the contract. So
We don't have any regulatory.
Well, we signed a contract.
Well, we got a contract, but
Yeah, if you have a
through
contract and
RCA.
let's say the voters approve it and the council says that's what we want to do, it's going to take about a year, maybe a little more, for the regulatory approval on their side.
So we have a 1-year window. You just tell them that we're sold, we're going somewhere else.
And that all happens when
And
the
that-
RCA catches up.
Right, it would be a moot point for the most part.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Well, if the city of Seward owns 1.2 or 1.5% of?
1.2%.
1.2.
Yeah, just under 1.2.
And then on the bulk power, what do we get for that, dollar wise, kilowatt wise, what do we get?
I would have to go pull the numbers for you, but I know that it saves the city of Seward around $250,000 to $300,000 a year.
It's also in the
In the Bible.
in here, it tells what the credit is to Seward on the monthly bill. Yeah.
So overall, we end up saving, like I said, about $250,000 to $300,000 a year by having Bradley. Bradley is the lowest power in the state of Alaska. You could turn back the hands of time. I'm sure Seward would like to buy more, but I'm not sure they were in a position to. And one of the big issues that we have right now is we would like to get more power out of Bradley for all of the railroad utilities, but we have transmission constraints, which goes to the point where I was making earlier, that we're all working together, the utilities, to try to secure some of these federal grants that will allow us to upgrade the capacity of the transmission and also build in redundancy of the transmission. These are important projects. These are the things that I'm sitting and talking about when we're saying, you know, we're heavily engaged with the rail belt, we're heavily engaged with the Bradley Lake Project Management Committee. These things are real. You know, we should be glad we have a seat at the table. And if we rebuild, we need to make sure we have the resources to not only do what we need to do to operate the utility here, but to also effectively work with the other utilities, which has been a struggle.
Just a side note, the reason we have 1.2% is because they went by the total system load at peak. Seward was 1.2% of the system peak load, so Chugach had the biggest, MLP the second, MEA, then Golden Valley, and then Homer.
Yeah, I think in Gold Valley, I think has a little more now. So
Yeah.
Any other discussion? No. Okay, moving on to number 7. What is the current cost of cybersecurity technology and what more is needed?
Right now, we're not doing anything with cybersecurity. With the RRC and this new ERO, there will be numerous cybersecurity standards. The good news for Seward is we're not subject to all of them because we don't have some of the software and whatnot, some of the other utilities do in our substations. Now we do it with the plant. But there's also a lot of physical security involved with cybersecurity, monitoring the substations, monitoring your plant, doing different things like that. This is the manual of the requirements on cybersecurity that came out of the subcommittee of the Rail Belt Reliability Council. So I said the good news is a good chunk of that will not apply to us, but a good chunk will. And every year you're going to have different procedures that you need to be doing as far as filling out documents, turning them in, submitting, making sure you're doing these things and staying on top of your cybersecurity. They are discussing now whether to make it where you have to have 24-hour monitoring of your substations. That would be something else we would have to upgrade and do. We don't have that today. So as you can see, that's a thick notebook. There's a lot of different procedures in it. This notebook is the transmission reliability standards that came out of another subcommittee with the RRC.
So, I believe there's 2.5 IT positions in the city. Is anybody know?
3. There's 3.
There's 3 full-time
Yep.
IT. And I know when I first started on council, and granted, like, when I first started on council, technology has advanced a lot, but there was 1.25 in 2012. So we almost tripled the IT department, and I'm just curious if, I know Justin has been there for a while, and he really took that department, and from what I could see, and turned it around. And I'm just curious if that's something as far as a deliverable, going back to what we need to deliver to council, if that an IT person could understand that manual and implement it.
Dustin actually sat in on a couple of the calls of the subcommittee. I don't want to speak for him, but she's here to speak for herself. In paraphrasing, he basically said, it's over my head, we can't do it. Okay? So, knowing that, and so you guys know, I put the cybersecurity position on the org chart because I think it's something that, you know, we have to talk about, and we have to be able to do those things, and we have to do the reliability. I think you could combine those. Now, I don't know that we need a full-time position for that. I think it could be outsourced. I put it on the org chart because we had to acknowledge that it's there and have the conversation. That's one position that I would be open to outsourcing if it makes the most sense from a cost standpoint. Because I think it could be managed that way. Not sure you need to make that a full-time position.
Can we get a cost of that from the The group from Canada that we're outsourcing the electric to, they specialize in this. I checked out their website, so could we get a cost from them on what it would cost to do this?
Yeah, I mean, if they've got the expertise, I have no problem getting the cost.
Rob, at your railroad managers meetings, hasn't there been some discussions about having people help each other with that
Conversation
particular
still in the
thing?
works. There hasn't been worked out or finalized at this point.
Okay.
We would still need, just for our system, somebody who can manage it. Well, I'd say outsourcing is a true option. I don't have a problem looking at outsourcing that function. I just had to put it on the org chart for conversation.
And I just wonder, the cyber IT, is it possible that there's another large organization in Seward that we could share that position with? Or is it so dedicated to electrical that it wouldn't?
In this case, it's definitely dedicated to
Okay,
electric.
and that might
Yeah,
not work,
I mean,
but
you-
maybe there's another community where we could share it.
I mean, we have an IT department in the city. Obviously, this is over their head. I think everybody would, this is new to them, but they have the ability to learn.
Sure.
They could be the ones consulting, doing the job of consulting with the experts to make sure that the system, and hopefully eventually they would be able to understand all the lingo.
I'm open to this kind of suggestion. I'm just telling you, based on what's happening in that world and my conversation with Dustin, and again, I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said, I didn't even understand part of it, or a lot of it.
So I don't know enough about how everything runs, but you got two generation operators as well?
Fan operators.
Plant operators. Is that something that could be coordinated in,
No.
that's over their head? No, it's totally different
I would
stuff.
say no, knowing how that works in the industry, those are union employees, and this job will undoubtedly be not a union job. I can't see it happening anywhere.
Okay, any other discussion?
I guess I remember seeing the city's got somewhere in their budget proposals to spend a bunch of money on upgrading their cybersecurity side and IT department. I don't know if it's software, but it was big dollars. And it's kind of like, maybe now's the time to be thinking about the utility. Say, well, here's a little chunk, why don't you start working on our side too?
Yeah, Phil, on that, I think, cybersecurity is something that's being pushed at, within IT departments, within companies outside of the electric industry. But the electric industry is a different animal, as you know. So I would be hard pressed to say it's something they can learn quickly. I'm not saying they couldn't.
No, they'd be contracting with their, working with their consulting, cybersecurity experts to manage both the city's cybersecurity and the electric utilities.
Okay, any further discussion?
Does not water and wastewater also have some technological things that could be incorporated into this one city employee to do
Good idea.
all utilities?
That's a question that we could ask the administration, or ask Doug in Public Works. That's something that's coming up on his horizon as well.
Is that something that's been discussed before?
No.
No?
No, and again, my focus has always been on the electric. Had not had that conversation.
Okay, so that we can get through all the agenda items, is there any more discussion on Rob's questions? No? I just wanted to come back around, if I may, on billing, and it's more of just a comment. Rob has mentioned several times that the billing is an issue. And for me, I feel like I'm a complete and total billing nerd. And I think that the only issue that we have as far as billing in the electric department is purely just people not being billed for what they're using. For example, a residential usage being charged business, business being charged residential. And I don't think that, I wasn't part of the net metering, so I don't understand that. There are rumors or something that I heard that
those net metering people that are in town also didn't pay water and sewer for a whole year because they weren't billed. So, and that was all just kind of slate cleaned. I don't understand. Yeah, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy, but I'm whatever. But the problem isn't electric in our building. I have my bill, and there's water and sewers are 6, 7 lines of minus addition, minus addition, minus addition, minus addition. The problem is in our water and sewer. So, anyways, that's more of just a comment. And then moving on to the next one, our next agenda, is that what's next on our list?
No. Where were we?
Council's direction, to discuss the council's direction to not change the mission statement or deliverables. I don't know if everybody else got a chance to watch council meeting, but the council, there were 2 council members in particular that were very firm that they created this committee to fulfill the mission and the deliverables, and they said that Rob has the most experience and that maybe the committee doesn't know what we need or what the mission is or where we're going, and that we need to stick on path. And if anybody saw it differently, they can chime in, but that's what I heard and that's what I saw.
Pretty much it.
And so just to make sure.
I have a
Yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
It's the middle of summer. Everybody's really busy, especially people on here, and people on council. Or people don't have time to watch all these meetings, so I'm airing the meetings anyway. I'm going to do timestamps. So this was on the agenda. This is where they discussed it. This is on the agenda. This is where they discussed it on the city's YouTube or on ours, because not everybody has 4 hours to watch that council meeting.
Thank you.
I guess my only comment on that is, I wish I would have seen this before they asked for volunteers.
Bingo.
All of a sudden, yeah, okay, that's something I maybe could assist in, and I think if reading this now, I would have went, no, I'm not interested in this.
Yeah, that was one of the comments from one of the council, I can't remember who, but, they all saw this before they volunteered, and I don't think we did. That was-
No.
If you watch the council meeting, he was up for it. When they spoke about extending him under contract, they did that, and then they approved the members of this committee, and then they approved the mission statement.
Correct.
There was no mission statement on the table when I signed up.
Right.
And that's why we wanted to talk about it, and they said, no, stay in your lane. Well, I'm gonna stay in my lane,
Yeah, we will.
but I can write letters.
I was also kind of defeating to just put it, you have a meeting, the next council meeting, they put it on the election.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of, I don't know.
As I
Not
understand
cool.
it, it's a parallel thing, right? They're going down that track and we're gonna go down this track and we're gonna meet together in October and decide what we're gonna do.
I don't think that precludes us looking at these things, delivering the deliverables, but also saying,
Right.
along the way, we also found this.
Yeah, exactly.
Really different thing. Looking forward into this.
And from my perspective, just observing, if the city decides to rebuild, they can rebuild. It's no doubt in my mind it can be done. But what you need to do is not try to take shortcuts. If you're going to do this, do it the right way. We need resources, and we need help. And the operations side, I feel pretty good about. We're about one position away, but the other side of the business, we're a long way away. And if you rebuild, you're going to have to pay more to be industry competitive. Doesn't mean you got to pay what you're paying Chugach employees or Homer employees, but you got to pay enough to get people to want to come to Seward, or at least give it a look, and then when they're here, possibly stay here, right? And we're not anywhere close to that. And I think that so it's twofold. build the organization, don't shortcut it, build it so that it can operate and be effective and efficient, and pay what needs to be paid so that people will come here and want to stay. Part of the problem, not just the electric utility, but the entire city has had, is a revolving door in key positions. And one of the things I said to council at the last meeting is you have to change your mindset. You have to change how you're doing the normal operations. You can't roll your eyes every time a number gets thrown out because you think it's too high. Unfortunately, the electric utility industry it pays more. But again, I'm not saying you have to pay what the bigger utilities pay. We're a small municipality, but you got to pay enough to get qualified people so you're not going backwards. And that's what I'm afraid would happen to Seward, is you would go backwards.
And so the council decided to keep our deliverables and make sure that we stay on track of rebuilding our utility. I don't know that I agree personally with rebuilding. I feel like our utility is functioning. Rob said it the whole first half of this meeting, how amazing our utility is doing, all the repairs that have been done, how gung-ho we're moving forward. Maybe we had a stint of time where there was a lot of deferred maintenance that was left, but it sounds like it's getting caught up and now we're moving forward. But we will stay on council's mission of rebuilding. And I don't hear anyone saying that they want to approach council again for that. It's done? We're good?
We're not gonna argue with it.
Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item.
Talking about deliverables number one, though, Rob, you could probably fill in for your new org chart that you gave us. You should be able to make at least a guesstimate on a lot of those costs per person.
Yeah, I know I can. I did homework, I did research before I even put out an org chart.
Because
But
that
mine-
is in our packet here of what we're going to have to pay.
Understood, but it was my understanding, that's one of the things that they wanted was someone
Us
to
to
look
figure it
at
out?
it separate from me.
Okay.
Okay?
So I'd say on deliverable number one, we should probably put on the agenda, let's start getting data together for each of these on this org chart.
I think that's-
Some of them are easy, your job, the engineer's job, the lineman, the plant operators. You haven't had an apprentice in quite a while, have you?
Correct.
But the apprentice is also pretty much set in stone what they're gonna make. For,
Yes.
second year, third year,
Right.
fourth year apprentices
You got it.
have set rates that they're gonna have. So we need to work on the other side of the chart, and let's
Yeah.
start working on, and how do we do that? Anybody have any ideas on how to come up with
Let's
those
finish the rest of
salaries?
today's agenda, family, before we get into
Oh.
that.
So one of the agenda items that we have is to make our next agenda. So
Okay.
can we come back to that?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be
Sorry.
great. No worries. It'd help if we had like a paper agenda so that we knew where we were going. And hopefully we can do that today so that the next meeting we can have a little bit more direction. So, we're good on discussing council's direction not to change mission statement or deliverables. Going on to the next discussion item to discuss the timeline of the document distribution of July 31st. Linda, put this on the agenda. Go ahead.
I did. And the reason I did is that I'm privy to some conversations that have happened that kind of, in my mind, fall into a conspiracy theory world. And so I just want to clarify what has happened here. We came out of the last meeting. I typed up a document that summarized the questions that we had and the documents that we wanted. And I sent that to the clerk. Council met. Council agreed that Rob would be here at every meeting. Then they looked at the rest of what we said and they said, no, we just want you to do what we've asked you to do. And somewhere in the middle of last week, Rob then sent me an email that had a whole bunch of attachments, which is now what this packet is. So I turned around, and it's summer. and I'm a little busy, so I may not have done it the exact day I got it, but within a day or two, I sent it to the clerk's office and I asked them to distribute it to the committee and to print the packets out for us for this meeting. Well, they went to Chris and I got an auto reply that Chris was not in the office. So I turned around and I forwarded it to Jody and to Karen. I then heard, and I'm not sure when that happened, but at some point in here, I heard from Chris that it's an issue because the clerk's office doesn't have any money in the budget to be printing out 9 stacks of leads. And it wasn't really until this morning that I then contacted the mayor and I said, are you coming tonight? Because we need to deal with this budget issue. She then contacted administration. Administration said, no, that's not, it's not a problem. The clerk might not have it in their budget. We don't have to redo a budget. Administration has it in their budget. They'll print them. They'll be there. So now I feel like it's a new committee and it takes a little while to get the kinks worked out of how it's going to work with the clerk's office and administration. And I just really don't want this rhetoric that's going on about how that these were withheld until today because it's somebody's idea of how to drive the results. Everybody's doing the best they can, and now we have a stack of documents, and we can set the agenda for the next work session, and I feel like we're all on track. But there's nothing untoward going on in the town.
Any discussion?
Question.
Yeah.
Troy, do you see anything in there about the audited financial statements?
No, and, when I relook at the deliverables, I don't see how I need them now. So you're not asking us to look at expenses.
They asked us how we were going to
Look at the deliverables, tell us how much this costs. It doesn't say, look through the budget and see if you see anything that you're questioning. I mean, I can get that information, I have access to that information. It may be something that would come around to, but if we're gonna work through the deliverables, don't really need it yet.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. For Rob, do you feel that in this packet at this point, we have everything we need?
No.
Yeah, there's some financials that I was still waiting on, I'll follow up on.
Okay.
Kevin, is there anything else you were talking about?
Well, sure, if our deliverables are expanded office space, additional vehicles, equipment supply, regular investments in system maintenance and capital projects, a lot of that sure as heck isn't going to be in this packet.
Right.
We've got a ton of things that we need to figure out how we're even going to attack those.
So let's
numbers.
move on to the next agenda item, because we got 13 minutes, and let's plan for our next agenda item, okay?
Okay.
So let's do that to make it quick. Somebody make a motion of what they want on the next agenda, somebody second, and we can do, mess up the word.
I'll make a motion that for the next agenda item, we tackle the first deliverable. Cost estimate for the salaries, benefits for the additional personnel as outlined in the order chart.
And who do we want to ask Norm or administration to bring us some other communities? How do we want to get that? I mean, they said that they already know Rob's numbers, and they appointed us to find these numbers, because if we wanted Rob's numbers, then they would have Rob's numbers. We just went through that. So how do we want to get those numbers?
That would be a discussion for an agenda item.
Okay,
Yeah.
so discuss the deliverable number 1 and how we want to go about getting those.
Can we just make that an agenda item for each of the 5 deliverables and have a discussion, a brainstorm on each one of them on where we think we can go and what are the alternatives and the possibilities of trying to find that
Absolutely.
information.
I agree. Everybody?
I don't know how to put that in motion.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Kevin, one, you may, I don't know, APA. maybe a lead, okay, Alaska Power Association.
Okay,
They may have some of that information, or at least steer you in the right direction.
okay. And is Crystal
Yes.
is still there? Okay.
So anybody that wants to bring any research that we do on our own to the next meeting to fulfill those deliverables is welcome.
We have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not second.
Oh,
It's not
does somebody
seconded.
want a second? Second. Yeah. All right.
That was for deliverable on number 1.
That was for deliverable, and you can ask the second for all of them, for all the deliverables to be on the next agenda, just like all the questions for Rob were on this agenda, next agenda are all the deliverables. Everyone in agreement?
I have to take a discussion question. This is Max.
Go ahead, Max. Yep.
Yeah, I might have missed something because I haven't had good audio the whole time. But I wanted to, along with the deliverables, discuss or ask about the mission statement. We had agreed last time we were modifying the mission statement, and I thought we were also maybe doing different things with the deliverables than were given to us, that we were leaving that open. So I wanted to just go back to that. Did I hear someone say we can't modify the mission statement today?
Correct.
And who says we can't?
Council, we brought it to council. They received our requests and they declined. So, it is as it was handed to us when we were here 2 weeks ago. No changes.
Even if we didn't know about it, they were saying.
But what we are doing next is we're keeping a list of things that fall outside of the deliverables that we may ask to work on afterwards.
That's kind of ditto.
We're all grinning here.
Is there anybody else that has, so do you guys want to vote on the next agenda item, or do you?
Can you read it?
Can you
Read it back to us as
read it?
written now?
Because I got my
I don't have it probably written properly, but
Go for it.
the agenda for next meeting is basically to determine where we can go to find information on each of the deliverables.
Is the motion, is that?
Close enough.
Okay. To discuss where we will find the information. Okay. And any other items, so,
Org chart, please.
board charge.
Yep, we need to donate some time to that.
Okay, so, and another, so let's go
Let's
ahead and
do this one first. This is one agenda item. Let's do the
Yep.
work chart.
So everyone in agreement for the first agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, go for it. So that's done. And so go, the second agenda item. is
It was in
org chart.
deliverable 1, the org chart is that?
It's within that one. I was
Yeah.
Within that one.
So that's gonna take up some time with that.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Skip?
thank you.
Keep going, I'll throw mine up when you're done. You keep
Okay.
going.
Okay. Any other, we got any presentations that you guys want? Yeah.
Well, I would be interested to talk to some of the people that Rob had come, and I know we're running out of time now, and I'm sorry about that, but you guys have been here the whole time, but I would like to hear.
And if I could recommend, I would love for you guys to hear from like Dave Burlingame, Mike Hubbard, our rates consultant, and Curtis Thayer, the executive director of the Alaska Energy Authority. I think hearing from those people will give you perspective of what's going on outside of Seward and how we are a player, and that there are a lot of things, a lot of moving parts going on as the utilities are working together at a state and federal level. I just think it's important.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
Well done. How do you see them coming and talking to us as it applies to the deliverables? Do we need to hear from all of them before we start coming up with numbers?
Well, I think where they come in is some of the resources that are on my proposed org chart. They come from the work that we're doing at the state and federal level, and we need some help. I can't do it all, and I think my guys will tell you. I would like to think they would say, "I'm working my butt off." So I think to hear from them, so there's a bigger picture understanding of the role that Seward plays, and what's expected of us, and where we are. We have an obligation because of our contracts with Bradley Lake and our memorandum of understanding with the RRC to play in this space. So I think getting that bigger picture understanding would help you better understand the org chart.
Does somebody want to make a motion to extend the meeting 15 minutes, 20 minutes longer? Because I know we're supposed to adjourn right
I would
now.
like to, because I love to let the
Yeah.
people.
So someone want a second?
I'll make a motion that we extend the meeting for up to a half an hour, but not more than that.
Second.
Anybody,
Thank you.
any notes? Okay, so we'll go ahead and extend the meeting to 9:30. And then, does anybody, so Rob just mentioned 3 different people that we could potentially benefit from having presentations from. Presentations are generally 10 minutes at the beginning of a meeting.
Wouldn't really be worth having those guys come down here for 10 minutes.
Well, we can, in Zoom.
No, I think Curtis would be easy enough to get here. He has a place here in Seward. He's the executive director of the Alaska Energy Authority. So if his schedule allows, I think he could come in person. We might want to give him 20 minutes to do his thing. I think Mike Hubbard would be Zoom meeting to go through rates and kind of what we're looking at here in Seward. I think it's important just from an understanding standpoint to know that. And even how the org chart, if we fill those roles, what it might, the impact it may have. But again, you have to do certain things. But anyway, and then Dave Burlingame, Dave would probably be a Zoom as well.
Does anybody want any of those on, any motions to have one or?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If Curtis Thayer was going to be in the area, he'd be interested and already here, if that could be arranged. Sam and Derby's coming, I'm sure he'll be here. Yeah.
So is this at the, go ahead.
If we're gonna line up these people, instead of having them all come on the same day, because it sounds like we all have questions for them, could we schedule one for each meeting and then go to there?
So maybe somebody make a motion to schedule one of those 3 people, depending on who could come to our next meeting.
I would make a motion to have Rob schedule them as available, and no more than 1 per meeting for the next 3 meetings.
And how long?
I think give them up to 20 minutes.
Up to 20,
20 to 30. I mean, I don't.
Curtis,
It's
I
important
think
we
he
get
did
the
it.
information. So.
I agree.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Is 30 minutes okay? Our meetings are only 2 hours long and we need citizens' comments. We really should be doing citizens' comments at the beginning and at the end, but we also kind of have an open meeting where citizens can talk, so.
I would say 20 minutes should be sufficient, huh?
Yeah.
I think so.
If they go over, we can always say, hey, we'd like to hear more.
Would the maker of the motion like to amend to 20?
Yeah.
25.
I don't know about one. I can't say that.
Any objection to 20 minutes and Rob scheduling them? No? Okay.
Madam Chair, anything on the agendas?
Yes.
We need to pigeonhole or set aside time for the, like you spoke to, Lucy, for the public. We're here to gather information.
Right.
These people in the public have unbelievable
Right.
amounts of information to share. We all get talked to at the grocery store, the phone rings, everything else on this. This is an important subject for the community of Seward. When I say community, that goes all the way out to Paul's Creek on this. So I think anywhere we can get information, some of it might be anecdotal, but we need the information. So if we could set aside 10, 15 minutes, fixed in the agenda, so when the public is here and they see the agenda, they know that they can wait and do whatever.
So that kind of goes to, we've been kind of just including the public with our meetings. It's open, I guess, I don't know how you would call that. Are we okay with that, or do we want to keep it business?
I think during our discussions, it's important to have some people that have a strong opinion or an expertise in the audience to be able to speak up at any time.
Did that answer
Not at
your
any
question?
time.
Yeah, that's workable, as long as we understand that, people don't get upset that they came all the way here like we did, we're all throwing away another beautiful summer evening.
Right.
Come in and take a look at this problem.
They get out of hand,
Everybody
we'll
there.
just put the hammer down.
Yeah, a rainy day would be okay, but
The one day.
Any other agenda items?
We did not vote on that one.
What's that?
We did not vote on the last
Oh,
motion.
thank you.
And member comments at the end also. So,
Any member and citizen comments at the end?
citizen comments first, member
Yeah.
comments last.
Okay.
That's what I'd suggest.
And Lori, can you remind me what we didn't vote on?
Didn't we just vote on presentations?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is there any objection to the presentations?
Okay, thank you. I was-
Sure. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to citizens' comments. Here.
You know, gives me thought, if we're gonna run this redesign, rebuild, re-energize this utility like a regular regulated utility, I think it would be worth adding, not to the deliverables, because this would not be a deliverable suggestion, but for discussion purposes, would it be worthy of having a discussion and seriously giving thought to creating a five-member board of directors to run this utility, help run this utility? You create a lot of, you give a lot of attention to the director with this board. You ask somebody to work with that board, possibly speaks directly to the council, is directed by the council, but gives the resources necessary. Sometimes I think the city of government process just either takes too long or isn't responsive enough. And I look at priorities. If his priority on a project gets put behind some other department's priority, all of a sudden the work of the people isn't getting taken care of. So I looked at over the years, and several of you have been in city government, so you know what I'm referring to. It's a time to really take a look at a more efficient, streamlined process. If we're going to be a real utility, let's give some thought to this board. So.
Go ahead.
Why 5?
Could be 7. I'm just throwing out a number for discussionary purposes. It's got to be an odd number. And I think maybe it's a hard time to get volunteers to do things. You make it so big, you struggle to find people. If you make it too small, too tight of a circle, you're not getting a diversity in the community. Who knows? Maybe your discussion might involve 3 in town, 2 out of town. I don't know. But I mean, the numbers and the distribution in and out of town isn't as important as seriously taking a look at how to set this utility up so it runs like a utility. So.
And maybe that's something that we can discuss when we go through the org chart, right? I mean, that would be part of the deliverable.
I don't know where it would.
It's off script, you know.
I know, that's what I'm saying, it's not on there. I understand that, but it wasn't on a deliverable, but I think it's, if you're gonna open up, the bottle, you might as well open it all up and let's take a look at all these things that really go with the utility. Rob can speak better on this than I can. I'm just throwing the concept out there to add to the deliverables, because it may be time.
I think I think the council would be open to suggestions outside of the deliverables as long as the deliverables are delivered, right? So I think something like that's a little bit bigger type of recommendation.
So your org chart doesn't show the top of the chart. Who's your boss directly?
Correct.
And who is your boss's boss directly?
Yeah. So I mean, going to the point, Kevin, today, as you know, basically I report to the city manager, but I also answer to the council. So in that scenario, then you're going to
The board.
if the city's willing to relinquish all of that oversight, then yeah, you go directly to the board, or you have a dotted line to the city manager and a dotted line to the board.
Skip, did you have a
Yeah,
follow-up?
one last comment to this concept. You know, the one thing we know about our city government is it turns over every couple of years. We're always turning over council members, and we seem to be also turning over city managers. But this type of a board would give you stability in people that are just immersed in that particular topic, addressing those issues, listening to the director, working out business solutions for business problems. Just a practical source. And when council turns over, it's difficult for council members to come on as volunteers to understand how this city works, you know, let alone how this utility works. So providing the necessary resources seems like that's part of your mission to help provide as a deliverable, and this could be another feather in your cap.
I just want to make a comment to that. I think it's an excellent idea because of the turnover. The people on a utility board would probably tend to stay a little longer, we would hope, and you would have more continuity. I think it's very difficult for someone to come in and sit on this dais for a 3-year term and get up to speed and be able to have any kind of real significant understanding of some of these larger issues that span time. I'm always asking them to be visionaries. Think 20, 30 years, because that's the actions you're taking, the impact is going to have that. And so having a utility board that really could look at that bigger, longer picture is, I'm really in favor of it.
And having a single focus instead of worrying about the fire department, the parks and rec.
Exactly. So I've been building a little list of the future issues. And so I've got on here right now, cruise ship legislation relating to power, power factor implementation questions, and then creating a utility board of some kind. So those will be we'll keep that on a list of things outside of the deliverables that we want to take up.
You got that, Kelly?
I'm gonna have you write that down on a separate document.
I'll email it to you.
Discussion items.
Anybody else in the public wishing to speak? Becky?
I really think that we need a finance director, so I don't know what y'all could suggest on that. Maybe find out where that's being advertised or something, or do a cost on what it's compared to what other people are paying for their finance director. I just think we need to advertise and get positions out there soon. Rob's assistant left in April, and it wasn't advertised till a week ago. Why, if that's such a critical position and we're such short-staffed and have less people to go to meetings and stuff? Would have been nice to have somebody to cover for you when you're at the meetings. And another person that would probably do a really short presentation is Dwayne Atwood from the railroad, because he would know what is going on with the cruise ships. And I do agree with Rob that we need to fix things up right when we do it. And why are we dumping money into it and fixing it up if we're just going to sell it for the same contract? Are we going to negotiate it for more? Then there's the consideration of how much does it cost to run the election. I don't know. I just wish that would have been weighted. But also make double sure that we find out how much it costs for the company we're considering outsourcing the billing system to Canada, that they do cybersecurity. So ask for a quote from them. That might take care of a big issue. And I did talk to the guys of the utility department, and even if it is fully outsourced, we will still be able to go pay our electric bill or talk to somebody in person, so that's cool. And I think that that is it.
Thank you. That was, just in comment too, but like you said, one of the things that, as far as the org chart that's missing in all of this is a finance director, and I do believe that if we had a finance director, we likely would have been appointed and we would be hearing the deliverables that we have. I feel like a lot of the deliverables that we're being asked to deliver are finance director issues that that person would bring forward. We haven't had a finance director since 2019. We had 2 for a month and a half each. And I am curious as well how the position is being advertised and why it hasn't been filled. So maybe in the org chart, I don't know if the deliverable says that we are supposed to only establish Rob's org chart. So we can't make amendments to it or changes?
No.
Okay.
Can I make one more suggestion on our packet?
Yeah.
Can we get a glossary or not a glossary, but a
Index.
Because it skips around and they apologize when they send it out saying, it skips around.
Yeah.
But it would be really easy if we could tab it
Yeah.
or at least have page numbers on which part of the deliverable we're working on that goes back and forth, and any future material that we get to add to this. Go ahead and start with page 246.
So do you want to ask the clerk's office to make a table of contents for this packet? that
Yes,
you
I
provided?
do.
Okay.
Yes.
I will go ahead and email Chris.
Or is it admin that does?
Well, I have an email that came from the clerk that has the city manager and the mayor both attached.
Okay.
So I will just respond to that email and ask them if they could provide a table of contents for that.
Okay.
That would be great.
Be a lot more useful.
Okay.
And one more thing, can they share the password to get on to the internet here, and then we can be actually,
Yes.
with a lot of these
Hey,
deliverables,
that's not a
we can find a lot of
problem.
things online while we're in our meetings, probably.
Yeah, and there's actually, I don't know if it's in here or not, there was an email from Karen Corrigan where she had gone through and found a bunch of stuff in legislative history, and she notes it. But I don't think that made it into this packet, so we'll have copies of that for next meeting.
Can we add something to the agenda for next meeting where maybe we spend a little bit of time, and assuming we'll all have at least some time to go through this huge packet, but I don't know if any of us could go through it. And any questions we have, any things we want to point out, or things we want to
So make a discussion item in, to discuss the packet provided today. Is that clarified? Second?
Second.
Bill seconds. Any discussion?
I'm just wondering the amount of time it could take to
Right.
go through this entire packet.
maybe just versus if everybody takes 2 minutes, hey, I thought this was really important, look at the page. And then we can
After we get the index.
or just whatever we come up with, and if we see something that we want to pay attention to, and just start with that, maybe.
And Lori, maybe that could be something that could form our next agenda, things that, to discuss that would prompt our next agenda.
We're also going to next time, right?
Anybody else in the audience?
I brought snacks. I intended on being early, but we had technical difficulties. So if anybody wants, there's water, and that is provided by Linda at Safeway. When I went to ask if they'd make a donation, she said, meet me at checkout and I'll just pay for it. So she did. And that woman was multitasking when she did that.
Wow. Thank you.
That's the manager.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and start with Jim. Any comments?
Yes. I spoke to it before. This is probably one of the more important electrical utility, probably one of the more important and far-reaching things here that everybody has to pay attention to because it affects everybody. And I hope that we can get focused and help that happen.
And, I would like to make sure we keep in mind what we're recommending, what it's gonna cost to the low rate payers, folks that, can at least afford to be some Cadillac utility that nobody could afford to pay the electric bill on.
Thank you. Is that everything?
Yeah.
Okay, Kelly? Or sorry, Kevin, sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned if any of us would like to do a presentation, and if you want, I could do a short presentation on how the interconnected system works.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I did that for many, many places over the years, so it would be fun and easy.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I would like to thank Rob for, this is amazing. It must have taken hours for trying to get everything together that we asked for. It was a lot of information. So I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, and thank you for everyone who came and is participating. It's awesome to see everybody, being involved in those things.
I keep going back to this Bruce's question, and I'm not sure that what he was asking for is in the packet. So Becky, do you have what he actually asked still, Bruce Jeffer's question?
Yeah,
Because I think he was asking how many FTEs do you have at each of these places, not how much do they make?
it said, can the city provide staff excluding linemen for Valdez, Cordova, UNALAKLET, and Sitka, Ketchikan, Haynes, and Craig?
Oh, so he was asking what staff they have on their
And
staff.
Whittier, yeah, I would throw in
And I don't think
Whittier,
we have that. We have comparisons
Oh, Whittier, never mind.
of their positions and what they're paid. So I wouldn't mind asking Bruce's, but I mean, I'm kind of interested in that. Is that something that's possible to get, or is that something we should try to?
Again, I think the best way to go is to start with the Alaska Power Association and see if they have any of that information. I know when I had Brooke Estes come in and do some research for me a year and a half ago, she actually had to pick up the phone and she had a set of questions, and she would call different utilities.
So that may be something we take on as a task.
It may be.
Yeah, and I would be happy to help with that.
But I think you were mentioning too that Crystal and her office would be a resource for us to find out a lot of that.
Hopefully they have, yeah.
So Lori, is that something that I heard you say that you would look into? Or is that something?
I'd be
that
willing to as we discuss it. I mean, like if that's something we want to pull together, it's like, okay, what other community are size? What's their staff look like and how they feel they're doing?
Right. So I'd like to, just for our record, make sure that we have those cities that Bruce mentioned. They seem like they're good comparative.
Yeah, that's had a reason for asking those specific communities.
I can text this to you.
But I'm not really sure about so many of them being non-rail built.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Some of them are villages.
right.
So
I think
How does Whittier get their power?
that's
True Gas.
They're True Gas territory. So
Yeah, no, I agree with what Kevin's saying. I think, again, you gotta get it as close to apples as you can.
Yeah.
Right. So
And that's not gonna do it.
maybe you could suggest which communities would be more on the south, and then we could go for
they
it.
already have like Dutch Harbor in one of these positions and stuff, and Dutch isn't really a good comparison either.
Yeah.
So,
We have no good comparisons.
Prince of Wales.
Well, sure.
In terms of the rail bill.
in any of the rail, all five of the rail built, or the other four,
Right.
would be who to look at, I think.
Really?
And possibly Copper Valley, because they do have transmission and distributed power. They have generation plants in 3 different areas on the transmission system, so.
And to my point early in the meeting, those are larger utilities. We're a small municipality.
Right.
We don't need to be dollar for dollar, but we certainly need to be at a rate that we can get good people here and possibly keep them.
I would say Copper Valley would be apropos because they have the same problem with getting expertise in and keeping it. Because they have the same problem with everybody wanting to do B&Bs now, so their house is unavailable for long-term And,
It's a good one.
yeah.
Just to clarify, is there any other community that is just distribution?
Generate all.
Well, I mean, again, the island
You don't
systems,
generate except under an emergency, so I'm
Talking
looking.
about Red Label.
the difference is.
There's
in
lots
the-
and lots of them. Yeah, there's.
Right. But a lot of those are island, I mean, they're.
But they run their generators. Anybody that's not connected to the rail belt, they're
Well, that's what I'm
islanded
asking, is there
systems.
anybody on the rail belt
No.
that
No,
only
that's
uses
why-
this? So
no,
that's
we're
why, we are
different.
the only one like that.
Right.
And so, there are no apples.
All
We're
of
the
them.
orange, and everybody else is an
Like I
apple.
said, you can, like with Copper, I think you're getting close. There may be another one or two we could find out there somewhere, not on the rail belt, but elsewhere that we can say, okay, they're a little bit bigger numbers wise, and they have, X number of employees per meter, whatever, we can look at it and see.
Lynn, do you want to say your comments?
Sure. So, thank you to everybody that's come. Thank you to the people that are watching. Thank you to council for agreeing to allocate Rob for our meetings. Because they did agree that he would be at every meeting. That's what we asked for. Thank you to administration and the clerk's office and to Rob for producing this large document and for it being here. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to adopt a mindset that everybody's doing the best they can. We are all in the same boat. We are all trying to row in the same direction. Over.
All right. And thank you, everyone, and I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 9.
We need
I didn't have it.
Thank you, Legs. All right, dear, you can stop by and look.
115. Oh my God. That costs
Thank you for taking the minute.
It's great, I really do. That is so appreciated.
I feel bad, I was late. I was snacks.
If you go underground there, you gotta go underground there.
Right.
Yeah, it's just so expensive.